Hey everybody, welcome to my Suburban Oasis. My name is Soleil and I garden in a zone 6A in mid-Michigan, formerly a 5B. And today is our day for our garden tour and walkabout. And I'm actually taking this just before a night where it's supposed to freeze. It's supposed to get down to about 28 degrees. So I wanted to get out here and make sure to capture some of the beauty that's going on before maybe some of the blooms succumb to that really cold temperature. So let's take a look. Well, the sun is out after a really cold and damp day, and the potager garden is definitely coming alive. We still have the beautiful blooms on the Virginias over here, and you can see I have some lumber that I need to get rid of. These are old landscape ties that had to be pulled up because of the fencing that we got put in last year. But check this out, we're starting to see some buds on our iris right now, and the new growth on the Stonehenge yews is coming along really great. Our lettuce should be just fine through this freeze. I think it's going to be all right with one night, and we're actually having one spear of asparagus coming up over here. And then we've got some beautiful columbine that's coming up over here and going to bloom soon. Now this fig tree, I've gotten a lot of questions about the fig tree. It does appear that this fig tree has died back to the ground again this year, but it is showing new growth at the base. So for me, I think I'm actually probably going to dig this out because I really don't like the idea of it dying back every single year, having to trim it back and then wait for new growth and perhaps not get any fruit because the season might be too short. So this is a hardy fig. This is the Violetta de Bordeaux, and it's supposed to be hardy down to zone 5. Like I said, this is a 6A, so just know that some hardy figs might die all the way back for you depending on where they're placed in the garden. So I have a pink mink clematis over here that is showing lots and lots of beautiful growth on it. That one usually blooms for quite an extended period of time. And the dark horse weigela has its beautiful dark foliage pushing out. You can see I have almost got this bed fully mulched, but not quite yet. We have some peonies growing in the back there, as well as some little lime hydrangeas. And up front here, we see that the deutzia is still holding its very tiny buds on it. So hopefully those will make it through the freeze tonight. We have so much fresh foliage right now that it's just hard to know what's going to happen. But I think things are looking really nice and just doing so great. And with some of the fresh mulch that we've gotten put around, I just think it's looking so much better than it did a couple of weeks ago. It's always that time of year when you come out of winter and you have to kind of dig out of things and feel like there's a lot to do, but as soon as you start getting things accomplished, you can tell it's coming together. The privet's really starting to leaf out, and it looks gorgeous with this carpet of creeping phlox down here. Now we did get this long border over here mulched, so I think this one is looking really good. We have that Amber Jubilee 9 bark right here, still glowing in the corner. And last week many of the daffodils started to go over, but we still have some of them blooming along with this ajuga. This is Ajuga reptans. This is just the regular old ajuga. Nothing fancy about it, but it has some really pretty bluish purple flowers on it. So yeah, you can see we still have some daffodil blooms going here. The hellebores are starting to go over. But the purple leaf plum tree is looking really spectacular right now. The leaves are growing great. And the lungwort looks beautiful also. We are in the evening, and in the evening this area gets shade from some of the neighbors' trees as well as the fence. But I think it's beautiful with all of this nice lungwort blooms. And this is a smooth hydrangea. And we have another 9-bark right here. This one is, I believe, the Fireside 9-bark. This one will start to deepen up in terms of the color of its foliage. It will get almost purple, black kind of. And you can see we have a lot more bleeding hearts starting to show. The ferns have started getting bigger this week. You can actually start to see some of the color on them. And I'm hoping that fresh new growth doesn't get really hit either. Just look at all the blooms on this lungwort. This will probably be in bloom for another week. We still see quite a few buds on many of them. Isn't that the beautiful bleeding heart that's just dripping there? And that's kind of a spring ephemeral. As the days wear on and get warmer, it kind of starts to die back to the ground during the summer. And then we have the Penny's Pink Hellebore, looking gorgeous, opening a few more of the buds. Really hoping this one also doesn't get damaged by the freeze, but I have a feeling some of them will, just because of the stage that it's in right now. Still lots of gorgeous blooms on these lungworts also. Really, really enjoying those this year. And the deep color of these. This is the Spot On variety. We have some heucherellas right here. These are not Red Rover. These are the other variety. I'm trying to think what it's called. I can't think of it right now, but it's a combination between a heuchera and a tiarella. And we're actually starting to see lots more growth of hostas coming up. And that is something that definitely is going to probably get hit by this freeze. They are really quite tender. Here we have a clematis that I planted last year. And it's doing a really good job of growing up this trellis right here. So I'm looking forward to seeing if we get maybe some blooms on that. Quite a few more Brunneras are blooming this week. We're starting to see more leaf growth on them. In this garden bed over here, the Solomon seal that is variegated is really starting to come up. And I think because of the way it grows, I might be digging this up and putting it in the way back garden just to see what it does. Now I have seen that the deer or something has eaten it in the past or munched on it in the past in the way back garden, but I'm going to give it a try. If I plant enough of it, I think some of it will survive. So that's kind of my thought on that. And now you can really start to see this golden Hakona chloe grass lighting up this space. And here's some more of those beautiful bleeding hearts, getting much taller. And you can see a lot more of the foliage now. They're so pretty as they dance in the wind. We're starting to see some bloom spikes on this tiarella, which I think is so cute. This one is a Pink Fizz variety, and it has very cute little pink fizzy-like blooms. And I've got a whole bunch of them matching on the other side of the walkway here, which eventually, you know, some of these start to become covered up by the hostas that grow. But they're really, really beautiful. And here we have some Japanese ferns starting to come up and really show their presence in this garden bed as well. More bleeding heart. And here's that Pinkaboo. This was one of the first blooming lungworts this year, along with the raspberry splash. That is just about to the end of its bloom cycle, so we probably will be cutting that back soon. I tend to cut them back all the way to the ground to avoid any issues with powdery mildew here. We have some wonderful heuchera coming up here, some light green spearmint colored ones. And the leaves are getting much bigger on this jet stream hydrangea. So the pulmonaria here, the raspberry splash, is probably at the end of its bloom period as well. So probably within the next week we'll be cutting those back. And I'll try to take you along for the video with that. I do have a trillium that has popped up over here. This is a white one, and this was off a property so that my family owned. We have some maidenhair ferns that are coming up as well by that. You can see the tete-a-tetes are just starting to go over in this garden bed. I never did cut back the astilbes that overwintered, the little seed heads, so I don't know if we're going to get babies or not. That'll be interesting to see, but we're definitely getting lots and lots of growth from the base and the leaves coming up. So we have our little hottie hydrangea right here. This is a panicle hydrangea planted last year, was its first full year, and I think it's going to do pretty well here. It's just going to take a little time to establish. I also have a bobo hydrangea right over here, which was a clearance plant that basically had no leaves left on it last year, and I'm sure many people, when I showed them it on the video, thought I was kind of crazy for buying it, but it was half off. And I know just how hardy these panicle hydrangeas are, so I went ahead and got it. And then we have the large leaf hydrangea next to it, so I'm going to be moving this bobo hydrangea because they won't have enough room if I leave them together in this space. I thought we might have some blooms on this heaven sent polemonium this week, but not quite. It's just been too cold for them to open, which I'm happy about because that way they won't get hit overnight tonight. Hopefully we'll still get some blooms. But the lamium in this garden bed is really blooming and going to town. And it's almost totally engulfed this little hottie hydrangea right here. I can't wait to see how those little hotties do this year and how much growth they put on. Hopefully their roots are much more established. This Dana's Dulcet is a hellebore that is almost fully open. It's still getting a few blooms here and there. And we have some nice new growth on this Japanese tassel fern. Again, just starting to mulch this garden bed, so need to do a lot more work. I've been putting garden debris, including some sawdust from the neighbor's tree that was cut down in the back there, just kind of filling in the gap where the fence left a pretty significant, about a foot of extra space. This Queen of Hearts Brunner is looking beautiful. Still lots of blooms yet to come on that. And this Bleeding Heart still hasn't put out its flowers yet. Our Mega Caramel Heucheras are starting to put on their new growth. So that's exciting. These are so beautiful. Their foliage is such a lovely caramel color as it begins to age and as the temperatures warm up. I think I'm going to put one of the bobo hydrangeas in this garden bed in front of the tree because it does not have any panicle hydrangeas in it. And I think just about every garden bed that I have almost has one because I love them so much. So this garden bed I finally got mulched and I think it looks really, really good. So much better. And you can see that the Mahogany Monster Heucheras are starting to come up and really show their foliage. We're getting some new growth as well on this Euonymus. And some of our First Frost or Ben Vernoy hostas, which we have both of them, they're very, very similar. They're starting to come up and they're gorgeous colors along with our Curly Fry hostas. Now I do need to come through and trim up these heucheras. These are the bilberry heucheras. And you can see that the new growth has started in the center, but lots of old growth kind of falling flat along the sides. So we may do some of that cleanup as well in a video soon. Hoping to share as much as I can with you guys. And here's our firelight hydrangea that is putting on such lovely bright green new growth. All right, should we take a pop back into the way back garden? I am hoping that this variegated boxwood puts on a little bit more growth on the back side this year. This was transplanted here. It was doing really poorly in its previous spot, but it seems much healthier here. All right, here we go in the way back. So we have more daffodils open now, some of those Tahiti varieties along the edge here, in addition to the tete-a-tetes. And we're seeing more blooms back here because we've got the heucheras in bloom, we've got the lamium in bloom, more Tahiti daffodils coming down here. Lungworts are in bloom. This one is a Diana Clare. Beautiful colors on that. And I'm starting to get some epimedium blooms, you guys. Check this out. I think this one is the lilac fairy variety. They're just very, very small. Let me see if I can tilt one up for you here. They have little spurs on them. Isn't that pretty? And these are just getting ready to bloom here, but they haven't started yet. Lots of sweet woodruff that hasn't quite bloomed yet. I have some in the other parts of the gardens that is blooming, but because this one has more shade and is a little cooler back here, it hasn't started yet. And there we have our witch hazel that's really leafing out. So quite a bit more color back here this week. Lots of blues and yellows. And you can see we have more new growth on our ferns. This one's the Jurassic Gold. And the Himalayan maidenhair fern is starting to put out some new growth. Very pretty. All right, well, let's head up and take a look at the long border. All right, well, as we come up to the long border, you'll see that our sedum is getting much bigger down here, bringing a wonderful blue-gray color to the border. I do think we're going to lose the tulips as well overnight tonight, unfortunately. Maybe I'll have some time to make a quick bouquet, just throw them in a vase. Our red buds are blooming, so let's take a look at this one here, and then we'll swing around and take a look at the one behind us. I'm so happy you can actually see the blooms this year. There just has to be enough of them to be able to actually get a display. So yeah, those are looking good. Our hydrangea that we transplanted just the other day got rain a couple nights ago, so it's looking rather happy there. Plenty of space for it to grow, and we're starting to get some leaves on this 9-bark, which is the fireside 9-bark here, so that should be a really nice contrast. We have our little spirea and our limoncello barberries, which I definitely need to get after and trim because they're starting to grow quite a bit. I like to keep them small and tidy and a nice formal round shape. And then back behind them, our samurai lungwort are blooming pretty good. Now I have, you guys, lots of holes around my garden, and I think it's because of the mild winter that we have lots of mice and moles and rabbits and every kind of varmint. I'm really hoping, if you've watched this channel before, you know that I really am hoping that I don't lose the blooms on this viburnum because it's gorgeous when they come out. So all of these are just starting to try to open Ooh, nervous about that one. The spirea is still looking gorgeous this week. And I think it is time now, after we get this freeze, to pull the cover off of the fountain and get that full and starting to run. You can see how much more leaf growth we've had on this bloodgood maple. This year I am going to be coming through and trimming the candles off of this mugo pine because I don't want it to get too much bigger. But I actually have a cone on it this year. That's the first time I've seen a cone on it. That's fun. This garden bed is looking really good right now. The ajuga is starting to bloom finally. And you can just see that purplish blue color that it has. We have some gorgeous tulips over here. I have no idea what kind they are, but for some reason nothing has bothered them. They have been planted in the same spot for, I think this is their 3rd year now, and that's just not normal for my garden. And then we have this beautiful purple flower. This is called the pulsatilla. I showed you this last week, but now it's got a lot more blooms on it. I may lose some of them also to the freeze, so that will be too bad, but we'll see. Maybe we'll get some more. There's lots of blooms still coming up. Now, the ajuga in this garden bed is called chocolate chip. And so it's got a little bit of a different cast of blue and purple to it. And we have just a little bit more growth on these primroses over here. I can't wait to show you this one once it starts to bloom. This one's really gorgeous. It's kind of a peachy color. I love things that have that sunrise glow in the garden. Our cherry tree is just leafing out a ton. So it looks pretty healthy. And this is another little hottie hydrangea that we have here with the sedum planted in this. Things are just filling out really, really nicely. Let's look in the front garden. All right, well, in the front garden, our azalea has still got some blooms on it, but you can see it's starting to push out some nice new green growth here. And our fern heads have grown quite a bit since last week. Still no blooms on this azalea open yet, but maybe that will keep it from getting hit by the freeze tonight. And check out the crabapple. It smells so good. It looks so great. I really wanted to do this video before the freeze because of this one and the other crabapple are both in such a beautiful bloom right now. I did come through this garden bed and added some annuals. I had some more violas and I thought I would pot them up in these containers, and I think they bring a bit of cheer and more color to this area, along with some of the daffodils that are still blooming. But this bed is filled with a lot of coneflowers, mums, and salvia. So some of the next best things that will be coming up will be the salvia, which should bloom in May. And then we have the tiny wine 9 bark right here, with another pretty container of violets in my shadow. Sorry about that. Or violas, I called them violets. And then we have our Louisa crabapple, which is just looking great. Oh, and it smells wonderful too. So, so good. You can really see how it changes colors as the blooms open. Oh, it smells like delicious perfume. And thankfully, the buds have not fully opened on these viburnums either, or on this elderberry. Let's check and see if we can see any buds on this. I don't see any down in there yet, so maybe they won't bloom simultaneously. We'll see. We're about to get some really warm temperatures after we get these really cold temperatures. I came through and cleaned up this garden bed and got all of the rocks cleaned up, so it's looking a lot better over here. And our sun garden bed is definitely looking good. I'm going to be doing some pretty serious trimming probably on the boxwoods this year. They've been getting rather large, and I've got to get after that really soon because they're putting on lots of new growth right now. You can see the sedums have really started to pop up, and these are just autumn joy sedums. And then in the middle we have some allium schubertii that are coming up. And these orange rocket barberries are getting ready to flower. They have some very small little flowers on them. And these are supposed to be a sterile variety. And all of the allium caratavienses have their buds on them. So hopefully in the next week we'll be seeing those bloom as well. So exciting. I don't know if you remember, but last year I had a wasp nest that was in this tree. I got stung by it and had an allergic reaction. It was actually hornets, and so it seems like that actually killed off part of this plant. We'll see if anything leaves out on it, but if not, I'll be having to come through and trim up these dead branches. So that was something interesting to learn about. Soon we'll be having to come through and clean up some of the spent daffodil foliage as they are going over. The bobo hydrangeas on this side are just starting to put on their new growth now finally. And I can see lots of new growth getting ready to open on these variegated boxwoods. I'm hoping we get some nice blooms on the irises as well in this garden bed. I really like the upright sword-like foliage of it and the contrast with the boxwoods. We had a few blooms last year, not a ton, but maybe this year we'll get a few more. I have gone through this garden bed and left the hole open for hopefully the weeping crabapple, that Louisa one. And I've gotten 3 big tubs of compost to mix in with the soil when I plant it, in the hopes that that will help get it off to a really good start. So that's the plan there. And just look at all these daffodils still looking so cheery and bright. I would highly recommend this one. It seems like the stems are really sturdy, and I just love the look of the double flowers. The orange and the yellow. It's such a bright, cheery color for spring. And our weigela is really starting to leaf out here. These are some of the last shrubs to leaf out. But that one should be blooming in May, definitely. Our shade garden is looking pretty good out front here. I'm definitely enjoying the views out my front window more and more every day. And I definitely need to come through here and harvest some of the baby hellebores. You see we have quite a few in here that need to be dug up. I'm not going to keep all of them in here. And the hostas are starting to come through. So this garden bed, a lot of the spaces that you see that look empty right now will be full by June of hostas. I also have some maidenhair ferns in here. But right now we can continue to enjoy the hellebores as well as the large root geranium. We see a few more Virginia on this side of the garden with some pretty pink blooms along the edge. And we have another Weigela right here that is finally showing signs of leaf growth. And I think these are just getting going, really. This garden bed is going to be great this year, much better than last year. We've got quite a bit more interest in it than we did before. You can see it really filling in, and I love that. Before it just felt kind of empty. I did transplant some phlox right over here from where I had dug up the maple tree. So this is just a bed that I had some herbs in. I still have some sage, the variegated sage there. The rosemary did not make it through the winter. I do not see any new growth on it at this point. And this little vignette right here is looking rather pretty. I love it. The elderberry behind it actually looks a little bit more like a vine to me than it looks like a shrub. But we'll be trying to change that a little bit as time goes on here. After it blooms, we'll prune it up and try to make it look a little bit prettier. And finally, the glow of this spirea is looking great. And this is another one that I'm really hoping doesn't lose its blooms because of the overnight freeze. I hope you guys fare well during these cold temperatures. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this garden tour, walking around with me to see what's blooming and what's in store next, because I sure do. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time.